If you've ever shuddered at someone slurping on a bowl of soup or cringed at the creak of a door, you know just how irritating a harmless sound can be. But for Melbourne's Suey McGrath, there's one noise that isn't just annoying, it has the potential to ruin her entire day.
The sounds that trigger me are particularly plastic bags, so like a typical chip bag. That crushing, loud crushing sound, and someone putting their hand in, that just sounds so harsh on my ears and so irritating. If I'm ever in the movies and someone's rattling a plastic bag behind me, I turn and glare at them because I just can't stand it. Also on the train, if someone's rattling a bag, I just have to get up and move because I really can't handle it. There's some things I can just feel a bit frustrated about. But when I hear these sounds, I really just want to scream. I feel like I've just got to get away, and if the person doesn't stop it, I'm going to have to put my hands around their neck and squeeze.
Suey's aversion to the crinkle of plastic might sound dramatic, but it's actually the result of a little-known disorder called misophonia.
So misophonia is an aversive reaction to a range of sounds, typically trigger sounds made by other people, and most commonly eating, breathing, sniffing sounds. It can also be repetitive sounds, so pens tapping, keyboard, tapping, that sort of sound. And it's characterised by a disproportionate, and I say that without judgment, a disproportionate reaction of anger or even rage. The sound goes into the ear and then heads up to the brain.
Audiologist Myriam Westcott frequently sees patients who are suffering from misophonia, and she believes it's far more common than we realise.
Sound intolerance disorders, we're still in our infancy, really, in understanding them fully. It's only just last year that a group of people that have researched misophonia got together to try and come up with an agreed-on definition, and they agreed that it should be called a disorder. So while there's a fair bit of consensus and there's research going on, we're still feeling our way.
It's really hard because I eat by myself.
In my experience, it's most commonly triggered by a sound made by a family member at a time of childhood vulnerability. So that might be a family member, let's say a parent or a sibling who's eating noisily, and that might be when the child is feeling particularly stressed or vulnerable. That reaction of irritation and or disgust lodges in the primitive part of the brain. So the next time you're in that situation, the brain remembers that and anticipates that sort of emotional response, and it builds up.
When I think back, I remember being in the car when I was a child, rattling a plastic bag, eating chips out of a plastic bag, and my dad getting cross at me and saying, "Stop rattling that plastic bag." And he didn't really get cross at us very often, And then every time I went to use a plastic bag, I'd think about it, what an awful noise it is. And I think that might have contributed to it.
Sometimes you feel you're walking backwards through life.
Brisbane musician Milena Safali can't pinpoint the cause of her misophonia, but she says in recent years her symptoms have only gotten worse.
For the last couple of years, I've had a few things that you'd probably describe as traumatic. One was our home burning down in the Black Summer bushfires in Mallacoota on New Year's Eve 2019. And then I was in a terrible car accident when I went back to Mallacoota for closure and ended up in hospital for 3 weeks and had my mobility challenged. So the misophonia has always been there since I can probably remember being about 14 and being triggered by clicking heels, high heels. I don't recall being triggered by any other sounds, but as I've gotten older and as these traumas in my life have occurred, the list of trigger sounds has absolutely blown right out. I've got, probably 20 triggers, dripping taps, motors that are running incessantly outside, scuffling thongs, baby lorikeets doing a certain chirpy sound, whereas I have 8 lorikeets and they don't affect me whatsoever. It's specifically that sound of a baby lorikeet.
Come on, you gonna get the tea? Want tea?
When I have a triggering sound that disturbs me, it's like the sounds are attacking my brain, attacking me. I've got no control. They're rushing at me. They're really, really loud. I've explained it to my partner. I don't know how much he understands. When he sits and taps his foot, you know, I go mad. I want to leave the room. I've got to go and get earplugs. But for me to say to my partner, can you please stop tapping your foot? It's disturbing me, is a really hard thing to say because it's like a personal attack on him when he's actually not doing anything wrong.
So how can the loved ones, the significant others, the family members provide support to somebody with misophonia? Well, to take it seriously, to not bend over backwards to avoid triggering, but to acknowledge that triggering occurs. I take it very seriously. It's very easy to trivialise this reaction or to sort of suggest that people have got some control over this reaction, and they don't.
People need to be aware that some people are just particularly sensitive and do struggle with this. So if we can get the word out there that misophonia is a real thing, that would be really helpful.